Hi, everybody. I'm Tanya Marie Dubé, and welcome to The Empowered Woman. I'm so happy you're joining us today. My guest today is the lovely Katie Phillips from the School of Love.com. Katie founded the School of Self-Love. She is also an author, a personal coach, transformational retreat leader, and inspirational speaker. And as much as she is the head teacher at the School of Self-Love, she is fully aware that she is learning and growing alongside her students and is a dedicated student of her acclaimed self-love affair process. So welcome, Katie. So happy to see you.
Hello. Hi, it's so good to see you too. Really lovely.
Oh, you look beautiful.
Thank
Okay, so everybody, as always, Katie has a free gift that she's going to tell us all about at the end. So please stick around because you're going to love it, and she's going to tell you how you can use it. So, Katie, I'm so happy to have you here. Should we just jump right in?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to ask you is, let's start with how you got on this path of self-love. Is there a story behind that? How you got to where you are today?
Yes, of course. It's funny, I obviously always ask that question and I always wonder which bit do I begin with? But I think I have to go back to the story where my mum committed suicide. That's really probably where it kind of everything hit its peak, and it was the realization that, like, some years later, that my mum's death was actually a huge gift of love to me. But I didn't get the lesson of that for quite some time after she killed herself. It was, I lived as a victim to that for many years. And I really felt like that was the pinnacle of proof that I was unlucky in life. Like, you can probably imagine there was a series of events leading up to the point of her doing what she did. And I kind of thought I drew the short straw in life. Like, I saw people with like lots of money and lots of luck and doing all these amazing things and having amazing relationships with their parents and yada yada. And I thought, well, they got lucky and I didn't. And I genuinely thought that was how the world was set up.
Right. I can imagine.
Right. And I kind of, so after mum died, I was a victim to that, because to me, her death was proof that I was born for a hard life.
Yeah.
Not that I had a hard life. Can I just go back 1 second and say that my parents really loved me. We had a really beautiful family, but there was a lot of emotional dysfunction going on behind the scenes. So, and I had a very blessed life. I grew up on the northern beaches of Sydney. I mean, it's a stunning part of the world to grow up in. I had lovely friends. I went to good schools. Like, I actually lived an incredibly blessed first world life, right?
Yeah.
I know your story and our stories in that department are actually really different.
Well, no, but it's interesting though, because we're both in the same place of, I did not suffer what you suffered at all. I will say that I'm very sorry to hear that your mother passed away like that. But no, it still leaves you with this feeling of watching everybody else get everything that you want that you don't have, right? It was the same thing. I totally get that 100%.
Yes. Yeah. It was like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I didn't know this, but subconsciously what was running the show for me was this feeling like there's something wrong with me. I'm damaged. I'm not good enough in some way. Like, I just don't hit the mark in some way like other people do. Yeah. And I'm just going to have to kind of suck it up and live with that. So after mum died, I had, several years, as I said, of being victim to that, until I'm not going to go right into the whole rock bottom story, because I know this is a quick interview today, but suffice to say, I really hit a major rock bottom where I noticed that I had actually become my mother. And I didn't know, like, I was working so hard at not being like her because I didn't want to experience life that way. I was working so hard at not being like her that my subconscious programming was so powerful that regardless of whatever I did to avoid being like her, it became a double whammy that I was so
because
much
you're
like
focusing. This is what I find, can I tell you that I am also similar to you that way. I did have my mother around, but she wasn't in my life the way she should have been in my life. But growing up, I was always like, I'm never going to be like her. And because I focused so intently on not being like her, I was becoming exactly like her. I know that exact feeling.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to me, the law of attraction.
Although we froze for a second there.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
back.
that's okay. I always just continue over it because I know it's going to kick back in.
Yeah. No, that rock bottom day, I realized, I mean, I basically locked myself in a bedroom, closed the blinds in the middle of the day, taken a Valium, hoped that the world would go away and disappear because I'd just broken up with my boyfriend and life was awful. I had a little boy, a baby, nappies still. And I kind of wanted the world to go away. Now, I wasn't quite there, like suicidal. I wasn't suicidal, but the day my mum died, it was the exact same scenario. She overdosed in her bedroom, which she'd locked herself in the middle of the day, having just broken up with her boyfriend. And it just hit me. I was like, oh my God, I'm a puppet. There's me thinking I'm in charge of my life. And I've become her. And if I'm not careful, I'm going to leave my son the way that she left me. And I wasn't available to go down that road. So, something kind of this, some power inside of me surged forward and said, no, you're not going to do that. And I didn't have any idea how. I didn't know where to begin, which is why I love interviews like this, because I was like, this is a great resource, what you're creating here, interviewing a lot of women about how they are living an empowered life, because I didn't have that resource. And actually my closest friends didn't know how much pain I was in, how on the floor with anxiety I was, how depressed I was, how poor I was. I had no money. I wasn't working at the time. Like I was struggling in every area of my life, but everybody saw this smiley woman keeping up appearances, kind of carrying on, and no one knew, and I didn't know where to go for help. And except that, interestingly, and I found this, and I think this is a really important message for your women watching your interview series, it's like when you have such a deep emotional experience with yourself and you realize that I'm not going to live like this anymore, and you kind of make that powerful internal choice that I don't know how to change, but I have to. When you just have that conversation with yourself and you kind of say no more, like I'm not doing life like that anymore and I have to learn a new way of doing life. We're so connected to our spiritual truth, and actually that's our empowered self. We're so connected to that, which is so connected to the universe and all that is, that the universe starts kind of shifting around us and sends us the help we need. So like I can't even remember exactly the order of it and how it happened that help came my way, but it did. And it sent me on a massive personal spiritual growth journey. Totally changed my life. And then I was like, oh my God, I have to share this with other people. Like everybody needs to know that you can change your life, that you're not born lucky or unlucky, and that you're not damaged, that there's nothing wrong with you, and there is a way free.
That's a massive revelation, right? I mean, I think so, especially when you're going through life and you're feeling like you're either unlucky or you're not, and then to come to the realization that you actually have more control and more power over these things than you realize. That was powerful for me too. I read something the other day. I read up on this stuff a lot, but I read something the other day that talked about how the universe is just waiting to give you what you ask for.
Oh, yes.
Right? So you just have to be really, really clear on what you're asking for, because a lot of the times we ask for things and we get them, but because it didn't come in the package that we expected it to come in, we're like, no, that's not what I asked for. And then you sit there and wonder, why am I never getting anything I asked for? Right? Right? It's true. That was
so
me.
True. Story of my life. So true. Yes. And I'm learning now to see everything. I mean, I really do live by the mantra that life is designed to support me, that life isn't happening to me, because that's when you're in victim, you know, and I lived that like for 35 odd years. I was victim, and now I get it, that life is supporting me.
Wow. Isn't that powerful?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. It's a game changer.
So tell me, who do you serve? Who are your typical clients?
Typical women that come to the School of Self-Love are really high functioning, high achieving, kind of got it going on, like from the outside looking in, they're pretty sorted. But their experience of themselves isn't that level of success. They've got this external success, but internally they don't feel successful at all in their personal life. So that's going to manifest as yo-yoing emotions. The people they love most are treading on eggshells around them, which is really heartbreaking for them because they're usually quite codependent. They're people pleasers. So really all they want is the people they love most to be okay, and they're doing everything in their power to help, fix, please, support them. But actually really what's going on is they're hurting them in some way, right? And so and they have a very powerful sense they don't know who they are, and they don't know what they want. You've asked a lot of my clients, like, what do you desire? They don't know how to answer that because they've spent all of their life working so hard to get approval. The focus has been outside of themselves, on external sources, to give them their validation and their sense of self-worth, the feeling that they're enough, that they're meant to be here. You know, so they're focusing on everybody else all the time. They're focusing on their achievements because that gives them identity. They're focusing on their relationships because that gives them a source of love and connection, but they don't have that resource within themselves. So they don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they desire. And so they feel really unfulfilled.
Right.
And that was me, right? So I'm like, I'm my client.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, that was me. It was, you know, who's my target client? Who comes to the School of Self-Love? Well, it would have been me 15 years ago, right?
Oh, that's so funny. I wanted to talk about your self-love affair process. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, that's the book's name, is the Self-Love Affair. Mm-hmm. And that is the process that pretty much underpins every area of study at the school. So whether it's an online program or even private coaching, it's a process which really takes you through. It's a 3-step process. So first, it's awareness creation. I think we don't know what we're changing if we're not aware of it. And so we've got to, awareness is the first step to change. So we're creating awareness around what simply isn't working in our life and what we're prepared to say no more to. Okay. And it's at that stage that a lot of people want to give up, because that's a really tough stage. Like, we don't want to look at our stuff. If I really take a look at my relationship, and this was my story, if I really look at my relationship, that's really scary, because I don't want to admit what's not working, because to end that, I don't know what the alternative is. It's like this abyss. Yeah. We're so scared of what we don't know, right? So let's just sit in our comfort zone, even though it's causing us huge pain and discomfort, rather than change. So the first step of the self-love affair process is creating awareness. And I'm so inspired by anybody that goes through it, because it takes so much bravery and honesty to have that sort of reality check.
And once you put a name to something and you point something out, then you kind of have to do something about it. And that's...
Well, I think it's soul destroying not to. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, but if you don't, you're living with that like gremlin inside of you that's like, this just isn't your truth. This just isn't who you really are. And it's always questioning, are you going to be brave enough to do something about it? Yeah. It does take huge bravery.
Okay, that's the
first step. Second step, we're moving into emotional expression, emotional processing. I think the only way to transform anything that's sabotaging us, whether it's a limiting belief, whether it's a sabotaging behavior or habit, whatever it is that's stopping us from going where we need to go, we've got to emotionally process it. At the end of the day, we're energetic beings, and we're feelers. I mean, we think we're thinkers. We're in our society, we're programmed to do life from our head, and it's so counterproductive. We actually, yes, our head's amazing for lots of things, but our heads, our minds cannot heal the stuff that's holding us back in life. It's great for creating awareness, which is the first stage. Great for creating awareness, but for healing, for changing it, you can't change it from here. Like, step 2 is you drop from here down into your body. You drop down into your emotional body. You drop down into your spiritual body, and it's there that you do the healing work. Right. And it's miraculous work, because you can't, and it's such experiential work, because it's hard to explain. because it doesn't come from you. I know that you know this, like it doesn't come from here. It's like, it's a body experience, and we have to feel it to heal it. We have to, and it is terrifying at times. And again, this is why a lot of people don't do this transformational work, because it's terrifying to really go there and really honor your emotions and really feel the shame, or feel the anger, or feel the fear, like whatever the sadness, the grief, the loss, all that stuff. Like it can feel so horrible. You think you're going to die. You're gonna think you can't get through it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love that you're explaining all of this, because I think one of the biggest reasons that people don't go through transformational, anything transformational, is because they don't know what it's going to look like on the other end. They don't know if they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And the way that you're explaining this right now, you can see that you're going to be okay. You're going to come out on the other end of this feeling better than you did before, because now at least you've opened up some doors, right? You've removed some blocks.
And again, it takes bravery and a real commitment and persistence, but you have to emotionally process. So the second step of the self-love affair process is emotional healing.
Okay.
A lot of inner child work as well, which is a whole other conversation perhaps. And then we move into the third step, which is moving forward. It's in the book, the third section is called My Vision, My Future. It's all about looking forward. It's all about manifesting. It's all about how to use this information and healing to create the life you really want.
Wow.
Because most of us are living a life that belongs to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Like when we're very young, I know that you know this, when we're very young, we take on the belief systems of our parents, and those belief systems end up running our life. And so we're not really living our life, we're living their life. Mm-hmm. And it's no blame, because they learned it from their parents, and their parents is a generational piece. Yeah. But at some point we've got to cut the cord and say, no, I'm going to live my life. Yeah. And what is that? And when you have identified the thoughts and behavior habits that aren't serving you, when you heal that, cut the cord on that, then there's this kind of this abyss of space to be filled. And it's like, and the question in that space is, well, what do I desire to believe? What do I want to believe about life? What do I want to believe about love, about money, about relationships, about my purpose? What do I want to believe? Not what was told me that somebody else's belief. What do I choose to believe? And then how can I go on to create that? How can I turn, we do a lot of exploration around your values. And how can I turn what I value and believe into my experience of life? And so that's part 3. It's moving forward. So you've got to go backwards to go forwards. You've got to do the awareness and the healing to go forward. But
you have to undo a lot of learning, right? You
do.
Yeah, I talk about belief systems a lot, and I write about it a lot too, because I really do think that it's really important to remember, and I've said it a couple of times on this show already. It's something, and I teach my 12-year-old daughter this too. I really do believe that I went through life always thinking I was a human being with a soul. And now my thinking around that has flipped. Now I feel like I'm a soul inside of this body, which is a completely different experience. It's a completely different experience, which means if you're going to look at it like that, then suddenly I don't belong to anyone necessarily. And that this journey is my journey to complete. Right. So even though I did have different influences in my life teaching me different things, it doesn't mean that those things I have to hold on to. I have to pick and choose what works for me, use them as my tools to get through the next obstacle, and then keep moving forward, because this is my soul's journey. It's not my human journey. Right.
Totally. And I remember as you're speaking, I'm thinking, God, I remember when I was about 15 and I was sitting in front of the fireplace. So it must have been wintertime in Sydney. And I remember, I was a teenager and I was having a bit of an existential crisis at the time. And it was quite angsty. But I remember having this thought that I'm more than this body. Like there's something more. And I had this idea that I was a spiritual being first and foremost. And I didn't grow up in a remotely spiritual family. None of that, that was all a bit woo-woo, really. But something in me knew it. And then I ignored it because nobody spoke that language in my world.
Yeah.
And then about 15 years ago, I picked up a book, and I can't remember what the book was, something about soulmates, I think, and past life experiences. And I just read, and I thought, oh my God, I'm not the only one that thinks this. And so now I live and breathe this work. It's, yes, we are spiritual first, and we're having a human experience so that we can evolve and be more of who we truly are, which is our spiritual selves.
Oh, I love this conversation so much.
I know. It's juicy, isn't it?
It's juicy. Thank you for walking us through that. That's amazing. I'm definitely going to look into this book. I would love to read all of this. Now, my next question for you is, what's the number one thing that your students tend to struggle with the most?
Codependency, people pleasing.
Okay.
So I find I would have to say, I'm always reluctant to say 100%. So let's go for 98% of the women that come to the School of Self-Love. People pleasing is a really big thing, because just nobody taught them that their feelings of enoughness and peace and identity and lovability was within them. They were taught, for whatever reason, that you had to get that externally. We had to go after it, and we had to work really hard for it. So the focus is always external, and it becomes then a habit. And people pleasing, codependency, is just a habit. It's a habit of behavior. Any habit can be broken, so that's the good news, right? It's a habit, and the habit is, the belief is, if you don't feel good, it doesn't make me feel good. So what I have to do is make you feel better so that I feel better. And then it's the piece that usually what happens for a codependent person is, if I'm making you feel better to have me feel better, I'm usually doing it at my own expense. So usually it's to my own detriment ultimately. So you're okay, and I feel better because you're okay, but I'm freaking exhausted because I'm on this treadmill of constantly trying to make sure everybody and everything around me is okay.
Yes.
As I think of trying to control every situation so that I feel okay. And that's absolutely exhausting. And that's the piece that most of the women that come to the School of Self-Love have.
It is really exhausting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I used to, when I came through something like this when I was younger, I think I've gone through every stage of personal development that a person needs to.
Are you not still going through it? I am. I think it's a journey forever.
Something that you just keep going through. But the best part about it is that as we get older and we process all of these different emotions, we now have the tools to deal with them easier and to get through them faster and to understand them better.
Yeah,
right.
True.
But yeah, I went through all of that. The people pleasing thing was really difficult for me when I was younger because I didn't like anyone like pointing me out. So I didn't want anyone putting all this attention and focus on me. I hated that. And I didn't want anyone to think I was like a troublemaker or that I needed anything special for me, because who was I to demand anything?
Yeah.
And then another thing for me was that I just wanted everyone to like me. And when I got to the point in my life where I was like, it's totally okay if some people don't like me, that was like a whole revelation to me that I was like,
no, I know.
Right?
I know. Yeah, I get it. I'm finally there. Yeah.
Like, not everyone's going to like you, Tanya. That's okay.
And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
Totally. I saw something on your website that I really liked. You had 3 things about living consciously, connectedly, and courageously. I just wanted to know what that means to you, because I absolutely love that.
Wow. Okay. So that's the self-love affair process.
That is. Okay.
So living consciously is creating awareness with what's going on right here, right now. Living connectedly is developing a spiritual connection. It's actually developing a connection with your inner child and with your emotional self, because that's where healing happens. Living courageously is going forward and creating your life.
Okay. I should have put those 3 things together.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily.
I just love it. The words. I was just like,
Thank you.
And how can we
glad.
all live more like this on like a regular everyday basis? And I just think, well, now it just speaks for itself, just to be aware of our decisions, right? To be connected to ourselves and who we are. Yeah. And to create and move forward. I really like that.
And it's all a choice. That's it. You know, it doesn't take any particular superpower to do any of this. You know, I'm no different to anybody else. We can all do it. It's just a choice.
To walk
And
the fire.
it
Yes.
is. It's a choice. We can do
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I'm going to get to the portion of this interview where I ask you 8 questions. I ask everybody 8 questions who comes on here. These same 8 questions are for everyone because I want to know what your perspective is on this inspirational part of empowerment. So the very first question I have for you is, what inspires you?
Women who are daring to love themselves, women who are daring to know the truth of who they are. You know, I just took you through the 3-step process of the self-love affair, and women who dare to do that. I am blown away and regularly in tears with my clients because of their bravery. It actually makes me, I can feel the emotion coming up now, because it's just not for the faint of heart. To choose to change your life and to really get real with who you are, and to get really up close and personal with your pain or your trauma or your shame. You know, like, it's amazing. And to dare to share that with another human being, for women to share with me who they really are, warts and all, to be that vulnerable, to be that trusting of this process, it totally blows my mind. And it's why I do the work. It does. Like, I can actually, as I'm speaking about it, my heart is starting to race because I'm so passionate about it. It's because, and I'm passionate because I am that woman. I'm still the student, and I will be till the day I die. You know, I'm really fierce about that. I am a healer. I'm a leader in this work. I am the expert, and I am still doing the work. I'm going through this transformational process day by day by day, all the time. I'm always in coaching. I'm always learning more. I'm always growing more. I know what it takes. I know the bravery. I know the pain. I know the pain I can experience today. I know the pain I experienced 10, 20 years ago. I know it intimately. So when I witness a woman going through it, you know, I'm inspired.
You know exactly what she's going
through. I'm totally inspired. Yeah.
I love that. I love how connected you are to your clients. I think that's really important.
Yeah, they become part of my life completely. They're such a part of my life, and I feel that I have that reciprocated. I'm part of theirs too. It's really beautiful. Yeah,
that is beautiful. Okay, so from your my next question for you is, from your perspective, how can we live an awakened life?
Gorgeous question. To choose to live consciously, I think most of us it's the human experience is to live in fear, actually. To choose to live in love, the other end of the spectrum, requires a huge conscious awareness. It requires to live an awakened life. You have to commit to yourself. And I always say self-love is self-responsibility. You have to commit to yourself, but not just for, I'm going to do this for a couple of months and expect my life to change. You have to commit to yourself forever. You know, from the day you make the choice that no more, I'm not doing life like that, I'm going to figure out a new way. You commit to yourself every single day, and every time you notice a sabotaging thought come up, and I call it self-harm, when we think thoughts that hurt us, that tell us that we're not good enough, that block us to having what we really want, that's self-harming. And to live in, what did you say? In what was the question?
An awakened life.
Awakened life. Yeah, to be awakened, you have got to notice those thoughts, and you have got to commit to healing whatever needs healing and transforming them. That's your responsibility. You know, you've got, because that's being awake, that's being honest with who you are and what's going on. And it's being honest with, well, while I think that, I can't have that. Like, if you want to feel happy and joyful and peaceful, I hate to break it to you, but you don't get to feel that if you don't deal with whatever it is that's blocking you to that, because that's your birthright. We're meant to feel happy and joyful. And our route to that is dealing with the here and now, the pain, And as we allow ourselves to work through that pain, then we get to the other side and we get to have the joy and the peace.
Wow.
And I think that's awakened, because that's honest, eyes wide open, like, this is true. And if I want that, I'm going to have to deal with this here.
Yes.
I've got to do the deep. I'm a big advocate for very deep inner transformational work. I love affirmations. I use them. I'm looking at my desk here. They're everywhere. I love them. But they're a band-aid over a great, massive shark bite if we're not doing the deep transformational work. Like, the affirmation helps and supports us while we're doing the work. It helps to rewire our mind with the new beliefs, but we've got to do the bloody work.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's being awakened.
Oh my goodness. I love so many things of what you just said. I was taking notes like crazy. It's a band-aid for a shark bite.
Yeah, right. It is though, isn't it?
It really is. I love that. That visual is crazy. And it really does this call, it pulls you into this call to action of addressing something like that. We can only pretend for so long until, the next catastrophe hits, and then everything rises to the surface that you've never dealt with yet. It happens every single time, right?
Yeah.
Wow,
It's that whole keeping up appearances thing. I mean, that's another thing that I see all the time. And again, I was that woman, it's that trying to keep up appearances, but that's exhausting. It's so much easier, actually. Like, you think it's going to be so hard to face your stuff, but actually it's so much easier than keeping up appearances every day. That's exhausting.
It's true. It's true. What can we learn when we fall down?
That it's an opportunity for growth.
Yes.
Right? That it's when we fall down, I actually kind of think it's exciting when we fall down. I fall down all the time. Every time I do, I know it's the chaos before the change. I know that it's I know that something is happening to me that's gonna, if I choose to be awakened, and if I dare to, I can transform whatever that piece is, and through the transformation something better is coming.
Yes.
It's a signpost to me that when the shit hits the fan, that something amazing is coming. And sometimes, and it's been my experience just recently I've had a good 6 to 8 weeks of falling down. Like, I felt like I'd fallen and I wasn't getting up, but I knew it was a catalyst for something amazing coming. I'm being taken to my next level. And while I'm there, and while I allow myself to fall, like, it's the surrender. I have to surrender to it when I fall. And we all do, because I think through the surrendering to it, through allowing ourselves to feel it, life is, again, because life's supporting us, it's not against us. Right. If something's happening to me and I've fallen, it's because life's trying to show me something. And through the lesson, I get to go to my next level. I get to go to my next level of happiness and joy. But I don't get to go there if I don't do the work here first. So when we fall, if we could just surrender to it rather than doing what we humans do and judge ourselves and beat up on ourselves and tell ourselves we're stupid and, oh my God, I can't believe you're here again, or you haven't figured that out, or whatever, which I'm really good at, by the way. And I totally put my hand up to I'm not great at not being okay. I'm not. Sometimes I think it's just so much easier to smile and keep up appearances. Except that I know the truth. I'm not great at not being okay. So for me, practicing like the art of surrender, in fact, surrender is my word this year. So it's interesting that I started the year off with the word surrender, and then life gave me, here, feel this then. And I had a good 6 weeks of going, I don't want to feel like this. And the universe is saying, but you wanted to surrender. And so I've had some amazing lessons, and it's really taking me, I mean, it's quite exciting what's starting to come up now in terms of my next level, on every level, personally and professionally, where that's taking me, because life said, here, surrender to this. And it felt horrible.
Yeah.
This
is what we were talking about earlier, about going through things enough times that you just get quicker and faster.
Yes.
Process. Right? So.
Yeah, but this time it lasted for ages. I'm like, really? I'm meant to be like faster at this? So again, I was judging myself. The human in me, the ego in me was judging. It's like, you're a coach. You should know better. You should better get through this faster. What are you doing? I had that going on. But the universe was like, but you chose surrender. You chose complete self-acceptance. You chose a whole other level of self-love. So here,
deal with this.
This is it. This is what that's going to look like. And so that's what I've recently been going through. And so it's a lesson. It ain't comfortable when you're in it. It's just,
this is what I find in life. You gotta be this is what I find in life. You got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Totally. Yeah. And then you sign up to being a coach in this area, as you are. It becomes the new daily norm, is being, what you said, getting comfortable with your discomfort, because that's growth.
Yeah.
And we sign up to work like this, you and I, we're going to be uncomfortable a lot. Yeah. Because to serve at the level we want to serve, we have to keep digging deeper. Yes, we want to go higher with serving, we have to dig deeper, higher, deeper, higher, deeper. It's the same for everybody. Yeah. But I think if you're going to stand out in public as the expert and really support people in a big way, you have to be doing the work.
Yeah,
you have to. You've got to be on the ground, in the dirt, hands, dirt under the fingernails, doing the gritty work. You do.
I wanted to ask you this too now, because you've been through such an enormous, painful adversity in your life. How did you find the spirit to get back up again?
I don't know. I think we women can be incredibly resilient creatures, can't we? I just always there was just this voice inside of me that just was, it was relentless. It just said, come on, Katie, come on, just keep going. You can do it. The voice is quite different now, because I have, in the beginning, I didn't have a spiritual connection. I didn't know myself. I didn't love myself. In the beginning, it was really different. Now, because I have that, because I have my spirituality, because I trust myself, because I've built evidence upon evidence upon evidence that this shit works. This work, it works.
Yeah.
I have so much evidence. I have so much proof that I can have faith in a very benevolent, loving universe, that the life that is actually supporting me. I have so much evidence that it makes it a lot easier now.
Yes.
But back when I was on the floor and I had none of that, it was just a voice that said, come on, there's got to be more than this. You've just got to figure out a different way.
I love that. There's got to be more than
something.
That.
There's more. There's got to be more.
Heard that sentence run through our heads, right? Is this it? Is this it? There's got to be more than this.
And I believe that's your spirit saying, come on, there is more than this. It's just planting the seed. But there is more than this. It's time for you to go discover it. Actually, as I'm speaking to you, I'm remembering, we talk a lot about all the tough stuff that we've taken on in childhood to then come to become transformational coaches. I remember when I was about 9 or 10, my parents being called into the school, and I was such a worried, anxious, terrified little girl. I thought, oh my God, the parents have been called into the school to speak to the teacher. What could that be about? And I was the perfect child. I just couldn't. I was petrified. Why are they here? And turns out I wasn't doing so great at maths, and the teacher wanted to talk to my parents about how I was struggling in maths. They came out, and I remember I was sitting on this step at the school waiting for them to come out, thinking, holy shit, what's this about? And I remember my dad, who's 6'2", 6'3", big guy, took my hand. I'll never forget his hand, his huge hand, took my little hand, and I'm going to start crying. And he looked at me in the eyes and he said, I can do anything, Katie.
Oh,
right? And that has stuck with me. So yeah, I've taken on all sorts of shitty programming from my dad, thanks Dad, but actually it's been the making of me. But he said that. He said, I can do anything, Katie. And I really do think I'm very lucky with that programming, because that has actually got me a long way.
You literally made me have tears.
I know.
It's really sweet. Oh, I love stuff like that.
Yeah. So thanks, Dad, for that. Yeah.
Okay, my next question for you is, what is the most difficult decision that you've had to make to pursue your destiny?
Well, it's interesting. Every difficult decision, even though it was difficult, my gut said it's non-negotiable. You have to do it. So it was like it was a decision, but almost I didn't have a choice. I had to, for the sake of me and my well-being on all levels. Leaving my son's father was really hard. That was hard because I didn't want to be that woman. I didn't want to have the split family. I didn't want my son to have his parents separated. I wanted to have that dream life. And that was hard. But I could see that I was in a highly codependent relationship. Mm-hmm. I could see that I was recreating patterns that I witnessed between my parents. I could see that I entered that relationship when I was on autopilot. I wasn't conscious. I wasn't living an awakened life. And excuse me, as much as I did love him, and I always will, we chose to have a child together. Our son wasn't a mistake. We chose that, and he's just so gorgeous, and I'm so grateful for him. I couldn't continue this lineage of sabotaging programming. I just knew that if I stayed in that relationship, I was passing on these generations of stuff to my son that I just wasn't prepared to do. So there's something fierce came up in me, and it took over, and I'm just not going to do that anymore. So I walked away from that relationship, and it was hard, but it was the making of me. I believe it's been the biggest gift to my son, ultimately, actually, and he has both of us, and I think he has more of both of us because we're both even more committed to him. So big decision though.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like it was a good one to make. I feel like I was the same when you said that you were on autopilot, going through life. I was exactly the same when I met my ex-husband. I was 22 years old and still trying to figure things out, right? Like it had only been 4 years since I had stopped living on the street. Like I'd had such a hard, because it was so on and off, right? And this was, and now I was trying to be a grown-up in the world, and I was trying to, I had a 9-to-5 job, and I thought that I was, finally making it, and I still hadn't figured out all of this stuff, all of the really deep work. I still hadn't done any of that stuff yet. So I was on autopilot when I met him and just sort of went through this relationship like that until one day, like you, something clicked. I was doing all this work and I realized that this just wasn't right. It just didn't feel good, right?
Yeah. But it was, that was a falling down moment, that relationship. You could call the entire relationship in a way a falling down moment because there was so much about it that was dysfunctional. There's a lot about it that was great, of course, but there was a lot that was dysfunctional. And using that information, the transformation that happened within me because of that relationship, I will always be grateful for, so there's no mistakes in life.
No, there are none. That's
right.
True.
Yeah. I'd never have realized I had to learn how to not be codependent and then go on to teach and show other women how to heal their codependency had I not experienced it to the extreme degree that I did in that relationship.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. Right. Yeah, that's very true. I wanted to ask you now, my next question for you is, what advice would you give your younger self?
To not be so hard on yourself, to just let up, give yourself a break, because you're so perfect and lovable and more than enough, and there's nothing to worry about. If I knew that life was designed to support me from a very young age, life would have been so different. If I knew that I was more than enough, if I knew that my life experiences, my thoughts, my feelings weren't actually who I was, that I was actually this perfect, pure love, spiritual being. If I just knew that, I could have just breathed a bit more and just not been so. I was so anxious. I was so worried. I was a scared little thing, and it's a shame. Again, making of me. Again, why I do what I do now. All that stuff.
See, it's all relevant. And it all has to happen. That's the thing. Like our experience happen to us, they're designed for us to learn something from them.
Yeah.
So they must happen. But yes, you're right. I've also been a very anxious person my whole entire life, and I get that, but the experiences had to happen. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's almost, when someone says to me, and I do it myself too, when somebody says to me, "I'm really sorry that happened to you." Well, yes, but at the same time, I mean, that's something that I had to go through, and I needed to learn it, like you just said, at that degree, at that level, so that I could really experience it, so that I could move on. And so this is now. So, and I hear myself when I say that to other people, "I'm very sorry that happened to you." I am very sorry for the pain, but I do recognize that this was necessary.
Yeah. You've got to be really grateful for it at the same time, don't you?
Yes, you really, really do. You got to be just as grateful for the good as the bad, right?
Yeah. And now, because of the work we're doing to heal ourselves, we're healing the lineage before us and after us, so generations before generations to come, we're healing that energetically. And even just now, as our human selves, we get to have these conversations with our kids. I get to have conversations with my son now that is so powerful, and he is picking up on this. I mean, I say I've got affirmations written everywhere I do, and he reads them. In fact, look, this little one he wrote for me and stuck it there the other day. It says, "Love you." Just stuck that on my laptop the other day, bless him. But he's always writing sweet little notes for me. We get to have these conversations now. So I can't ever tell my younger self that. I can't go back in time, and I probably wouldn't want to. Now I know what I know. But I get to do it with my son. I get to tell him.
Isn't that amazing? This generation of kids are growing up with information that I feel like we've lost.
I've just got shivers. I know. Yes.
I feel like this return now to all of this information is just stuff that we forgot. That we're coming back to. And now these little kids, like I've got a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they're learning this stuff from me. And I'm looking at them going, oh my gosh, when they're adults, what are they going to be capable of, these people?
I know. It's very exciting. It's encouraging. I got them too right now.
Okay, my last question for you is, what is the purpose of forgiveness?
Oh gosh. Well, I think if we don't forgive, we're eating ourselves up, aren't we? When we don't forgive, we're kind of dying inside, because whoever we've got the resentment or anger towards, they're not feeling it. We are, and every time we can ruminate on events that have happened, or we pretend to have these sort of ruminate on these conversations we wish we'd had, or we think we're going to have, and we're like stuck in this angry, so low vibrational energy, and we're stuck in it, and our mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So every time we relive a past hurt or pain, or we go through this ruminating conversation that we want to have with someone, I'm going to tell you that, or I should have said that, we do that, and every time we go through it, our nervous system feels it as if it's happening, and we're doing it to ourselves again and again and again and again and again and again, and we're hurting ourselves, and we are causing ourselves a lot of disease as well through doing that. So it's not just emotional pain we're causing ourselves and mental pain, we're actually causing ourselves physical pain. We're getting sick because we are just internalizing these same experiences, real or imagined, again and again and again. So if we don't learn to forgive ourselves for doing that to ourselves in the first place, and others, no one else is getting hurt. It's only us. So that's why we need to forgive.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, thank you very much for all of these answers. They're beautiful and well thought out.
You're welcome.
So now let's get to your free gift. I wanted everybody to learn about what you're offering, because I think it's beautiful and fabulous, and you can teach us all how to use it.
Sure. So from memory, I think the free gift was my video series, right? To break free from people pleasing. Yeah. So that ties in nicely with what we were talking about. So it's a 3-part video training on how to begin the process of breaking free from people pleasing or codependency.
Right.
So they just need to put in their name and email address, and they'll be sent the videos, and
Awesome.
your journey starts there.
That's a very awesome gift. It's generous. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
you're welcome.
It takes us through a bit of a process, which I do love.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This is
Thank
awesome.
you.
I
Thank
loved
you.
every part of this interview. You're absolutely lovely. Is
And
there
right back at you.
anything, last words you want to say?
Just the fact, the fact that we all have a choice. That's the key. I think we all have to remember that every single person has the opportunity to change whatever it is that they want to change. And it just starts with a choice. It starts with making a decision, and that's it. It's kind of that simple. And the universe has eyes and ears. And when your decision is powerfully emotional, you really feel it, like, that this is my time. The universe notices and will line things up around you to support you and take you on the healing path that you are meant to go on, because there's no one way or one right way for everybody. You'll be taken on your own path. So
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So good to see you. Thank you for having me.
You too. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As usual, we would love to hear what you have to say. Katie and I would love to know what part of this interview resonated with you. If you feel like you can use any of this in your life, if you have experience with this already, just hit reply to this email and let us know what you think, and I will pass along all your comments to Katie. So thank you, everybody, again, for being a part of The Empowered Woman. This is the place to come to learn how to challenge your fears, how to powerfully live the life that you want, and how to step into your influence. So thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.